Hello and welcome to the CAFMA Connect. I'm your host, Fire Chief Scott Freitag, and with me today is not Chief Fatima, and partially because, well, Doug has a way cooler uniform than John does, is Firefighter Doug Copenhaver, also known as Pipe Major Doug Copenhaver.
Thanks for having me, Chief.
Doug,
Happy to be here.
This is great, man. I do want to touch on one thing before we get started because I get a lot of questions. John, I don't know if somebody's asked you this, but I get asked a lot. Chief, you tend to go to the mug. Is there something actually in it? And there is, and I've been told that it's better to blow on it a little bit to make it look like it's coffee or tea as opposed to whiskey. But yeah, there's something in the mug. It's water. It's water. Water turns into a lot of different things.
It does.
But I'm in uniform, and we are here, so it's water.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of good uses for water.
I get thirsty. There are. So Doug made the mistake of texting me to thank me for giving a shout out to the Pipes and Drums band when I did the podcast with Patty, and we talked about you guys. And as people have found out around the organization, now if you see me coming, it's better not to acknowledge my existence or go the other way because I'm going to try to get you on the podcast. And you said you were hesitant, and you reached out anyways, and I responded back, "Hey, Doug." Why don't we talk about the band and let's talk about some of the history. So I'd like to first start with a little bit about you. So you're not originally from Arizona.
No, I was born in Dayton, Ohio. We moved to Arizona when I was about 5.
Okay.
Been here ever since.
I know you're musically inclined. You play, what instruments do you play?
I've been playing guitar since I was in 8th grade.
Okay.
Electric and acoustic. I dabble in drums, drum kit.
Okay.
I've been playing bagpipes for going on 9 years now.
Wow. So did you play in band in school, or was that just something, a passion of yours as a side thing?
No, it's just kind of a side thing. I had a friend that played bass in high school, and we got together and played all the time, but we could never find a drummer, so we never had a real band. It's just something I did pretty much all weekend long throughout high school, and I haven't been playing as much guitar since I started bagpipes because they take so much time.
Right. Yeah. I can imagine. But, Jonah is also an accomplished musician. And then we have Andrew Deering. So we have the makings of a pretty good band.
Yeah.
Just here at CAFMA. I know there's others. Now, one of the things when we talk about your musical inclination or your musical prowess, however we want to look at it, I can't confirm or deny this. But coming from an instigator, I believe his name's Captain Terry Jacobson, he had just mentioned on several occasions that you are you say not accomplished, but you're a very good vocalist, which you refuse to sing, so I've never heard
it. That's
right. Are we going to hear it today?
No.
How about tonight at the ceremony? No?
No.
All right. Well,
that's why I hide behind the pipes.
Gotcha. We'll keep pushing that. So you've had a number of passions since you've been with the fire department. I know at one point you were really into or working on and running the chaplain program. What got you into the bagpipes and the idea of the pipes and drums?
So I've always just loved the sound of bagpipes, long before the fire service. They're just such a unique sound. It's nothing quite like them. Kind of a hypnotic sound to them. So I've always been interested in them, and just interested in Irish and Scottish culture in general as well. And once I got into the fire service, I got even more interested in bagpipes because of the tradition that they play in our profession.
Right.
And early on in my career, I went to a funeral down in Phoenix for a Phoenix firefighter. And when the band came out to play at the cemetery at the end of the service, it just really struck me. And I told myself then I'm going to learn how to do that, just because to me it was so moving, and just seeing the tradition right before my eyes. So it took a number of years after that to actually get started. Really, I credit my wife, Katie, with kind of getting me going, because I got to the point of, hey, I'm going to learn how to play bagpipes. So I did like most people do. I bought a chanter, practice chanter, and a book. I was going to teach myself how to play, which doesn't work.
Understood.
Fortunately, she worked with a piper, and he put me in contact with an instructor locally, but I was kind of dragging my feet on getting going with that for some reason. And for my birthday one year, my wife gave me a check for $100 and it said bagpipe lessons on it.
Oh, wow.
So that was enough to pay for my first 4 lessons. So I thought, well, I got to get started now because she's giving this to me. So I actually had my first lesson on June 7th, 2012, which is the same day I proposed to her. So,
oh, wow. Very cool.
It's easy to remember.
Yeah. You know, one thing that you mentioned here, Doug, and I just want to point it out to you and thank Katie for this, is that Doug is known professionally as a feet dragger. And if you want something done or you want to motivate him, then you don't go to him. You go to Katie. It's like promotion to engineer. You need to prepare for the test. I need to motivate you, so I need to call your wife.
Yeah, it's that's where my OCD and perfectionism comes in, I guess.
Yes. You tend to sell yourself short sometimes.
Yeah, it's I feel like I have to be almost perfect before I go onto something. So,
and you always outscore what you think. Typically. So, on the pipes, so you started taking your lessons, and to me, there's 2 types of bagpipers. There's a good one, and then there's not. Yep. And with bagpipes, it doesn't seem there's an in between, because a lot of times when I think of bagpipes, and you see the memes all the time, but you typically need some sort of sound enhancing liquid beverage to make them sound good. But not when you play.
Yeah, that's the goal. Bagpipes have one volume. It's loud, and it's either loud good or loud bad.
Okay.
So, and there is, it's a serious instrument. Unfortunately, lots of people I think don't like bagpipes for 1 of 2 reasons, or maybe a combination of the 2. One is they only associate them with funerals and sadness. And the other reason is they've only heard bad pipers. Right. Unfortunately, there's people out there that don't take it as seriously as they should. They think, especially unfortunately in the service side of things, because, professional pipers and pipe bands take it super seriously.
Oh, absolutely.
They put as much into it as any classical violinist or any other musician does. But sometimes in the fire service, especially, people want to jump into it. It's, it looks fun to put on a kilt, go to a bar and make a bunch of noise, and they don't put the time into it that it really deserves. So, and you have to stay on top of it. My goal is to practice an hour a day on the pipes plus practice chanter time. And it's just, it takes a long time to get to where you should be able to play in front of people and sound halfway decent. And it takes a lot of time to keep that up. So, unfortunately, sometimes when people jump into it too fast, or they don't really take it as seriously as they should, you end up getting some of the bad pipers and bands that you hear, which really frustrates the rest of us. Sure. Because, people associate that with all pipes and drums.
Well, that's one thing I know about you, though, is that when you set your mind to it, you're going to put the time and effort in. And I know you have a practice room, or at least a closet that Katie shows you into so that you can practice a lot. But, it's interesting. You brought up that a lot of people associate them with funerals, and Amazing Grace. Anytime I hear a piper start playing Amazing Grace, it brings a tear to my eye. It just evokes emotion. But as I researched for this, because I wanted to talk to you about it, and after hearing the band play more recently, for the first time because of COVID at Founding Fathers, and then, unfortunately played a memorial, but then you also played a celebration, a graduation and ceremony for us. Mm-hmm. And so the history of the bagpipes really is Celtic weddings and dances and funerals. So they're played at all of those things. They're played to celebrate. And I don't know, I'd like your opinion on this, but I think when they're played at a funeral, the intent really is to celebrate the life and memory.
Yeah.
Am I on track with that?
No, exactly. And that's what I always say. That's what I tell the guys in the band. That's why they tell people to ask us. You know, one of our missions with the band is to open up people to the idea that, you know, bagpipes are not just for sad events in life. They're for life itself, for happy times and sad times. And even when we're playing at a funeral, you know, we're marking the passing of a loved one or somebody's loved one, even if we didn't know them, which is a sad thing, but we're really there even at a funeral to celebrate the person's life. Because we're all going to die eventually. But what's really important is remembering the person's life and what they did, and we're there to celebrate that. Right. So that is our true purpose, I feel. Right.
And, you know, it's interesting how the pipes got into, and we'll just cover it real quick because I want to talk to you about your uniform, more about our band. But when I looked at the history of the pipes and how they became part of the fire service, you know, the great potato famine of the 1800s, when there was a large migration of Irish immigrants to the East Coast in the United States. And there was such overt discrimination that shopkeepers would put up signs that said, "No Irish need apply." And to me, just seeing that just reminds me of where the country was and where we are today. But so the only jobs they could get were the ones that people considered the most dangerous: police officer and firefighters. And we all know that the smart ones went to the fire side. We see it today. And I'm just kidding. But when one of them would die, and that was why nobody wanted the fire and police jobs, because people were dying, the Irish carried that tradition here and would play at the funerals, and pretty soon it caught on, and other folks in the fire service who were non-Irish or other police officers who were non-Irish would request the pipes play for their loved ones.
Yep. And that's an interesting point, because that's something that comes up a lot. You know, people asking us, you know, why so much Irish stuff in our bands. We use a lot of that imagery, you know. In our logo, we have a harp and shamrocks, which is a reference to Ireland. And so people get confused because they think of bagpipes as being Scottish, which they are. The great Highland bagpipes that we play come from Scotland. Right. The Irish adopted them for funerals and celebrations because you play them outside. They're louder. You can walk or march with them, which you can't with traditional Irish pipes, uilleann pipes. You have to play sitting down. And so, you know, like you said, when the Irish came here in such large numbers during the mid 1800s, that's the only jobs they could get. To a large degree were firemen and policemen, because no one wanted to do the dirty, dangerous jobs. And that's where the tradition grew of playing at the funerals, and has carried on, become such a huge part of our tradition in the fire service and in law enforcement today.
So let's talk about the uniform, because it's fire service related, but it's not your typical fire service uniform. And so somewhere along the line, somebody had to say, this is what we're going to wear when we play the pipes, play the drums to celebrate. So let's start with the hat. Why that type of hat? What is the symbolism of the emblem you have on the side, the medallion?
So this is a Glengarry.
Okay.
And it's a traditional military type of hat.
Okay.
And so that's where that comes from. And especially in the fire service pipes and drums, and in law enforcement pipes and drums, most of our uniform comes from military tradition, Scottish military tradition. And it gets mixed because the traditional Scottish full dress is very, there's a lot to it, a lot of different pieces.
Right.
The Irish is a little more simple, not as much flair, and we are somewhere kind of in between. And when you look at fire service pipe bands, they run the full gamut from super simple to super extravagant. Ours is a little less extravagant, our full dress. And so, the Glengarry goes back to the military tradition. Okay. Obviously, the kilt is traditional, and it's developed. That's kind of changed over the years.
Sure. Talk about that for a second, because I didn't realize there were Scottish kilts and Irish kilts, and that in the United States, it's kind of a mix.
Yeah. So the type of kilt we wear, you know, way back when the Scots wore great kilts, which were more of a wrap, a lot of material. And over the years, it's turned into what it is now, where like what we wear is an 8-yard kilt. So it takes 8 yards of material to make the kilt because of all the pleats in the back. And that's what gives it a nice flow when you're marching. So the pattern of the kilt is called a tartan.
Okay.
That's all the varying colors and lines that you see. And there's thousands of different tartans. And in Scotland, every clan had a different tartan.
Okay.
So lots of different patterns, and Irish kilts are typically solid color, like saffron or solid green. In modern times, they've developed more Irish tartans based on, counties and just different parts of the country. And like the one we wear is County Limerick. Limerick is a county and a city in Ireland. And they choose the colors sometimes based on their crest for that area. So yeah, it's over the years it's developed into where you see lots of different patterns, tartans now.
So now you guys carry our name, the CAFMA name, and the local, but you're actually a 501c3, so you get a little bit of support from us, but most of your support comes from donations and fundraisers, which COVID has hit you pretty hard.
Yeah.
Not being able to play publicly. And I say that because when you guys put your uniforms together, how much is a kilt like that? What does your uniform kilt cost?
So the kilt we wear is about $600.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what about the tops? Are those your typical uniform top and then just different logos or patches on them?
So we have a couple variations in our uniform based on the type of ceremony or event that we're doing. So what I'm wearing now is a semi-full dress. Long sleeve shirt and tie with we have our band patch and the Arizona Fire Service pipe band patch.
Oh, awesome.
Which we're part of the state band.
Right.
And then our department patch and union patch, which our honor guard commander, Jeremiah King, designed this. So we represent the department, our union, our band, and the state band. So this is, we also have a jacket that we wear, a more formal jacket. It's actually a doublet is what it's called.
Okay.
And we usually reserve that for things like funerals and memorials, like the 9/11 memorial or service funerals, things like that. So ceremonies, like graduations, promotional ceremonies, things like that. We usually wear this with a horsehair sporran, which is a dress, military style sporran. The sporran is the piece you wear in front of the kilt. Okay.
Is that where your flask is?
I usually wear it on my belt, but you can put a flask in the sporran for sure.
Understood. So it typically, if you're in the pipes and drums band and you have the kilt as part of your uniform, what would go in the flask?
For me, Jameson.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
I promised Chief Polachek a bottle of that for his,
good choice.
Retirement ceremony coming up while we're taping on Wednesday, so tonight. And just while I'm thinking about it, quick shout out to JK. Coming for you next. So we can get the honor guard on here. So when we talk about the 501c3, you and the honor guard are together. You're under the 501c3 from the honor guard. And the honor guard has had a similar issue this year with COVID and running their fundraisers. And so our honor guard is in a similar position in that we have some monies that support them, but typically most of that comes from donations, which they haven't been able to raise this year. So if you're watching this, anyone out there in YouTube, Spotify, land, Google Play, whatever it is, and you're interested in donating to the CAFMA Honor Guard and CAFMA Pipes and Drums, how would they do that?
So we our 501c3 is set up through a bank account. And we can accept mostly checks. It's easy. And we have a number, a 501c3 number associated with that, where we can give receipts for at the end of the year for taxes, for donations, as a write-off, tax write-off.
So why don't we do this? If somebody wants to donate, they can call our front office at 928-772-7711. They can talk to the ladies in the front office, and then they will get them in contact with either you or JK, and they can make a donation that way. That way they know who to make the check out to.
Yep. That would be the easiest way.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. What about Venmo?
Venmo, I don't know anything about that. I know what it is, but we're not set up with that.
Gotcha. Okay. We need to get you guys into like close to the 20th century. I know we're beyond that, but we need to get you guys little steps, baby steps. So you talked about the state band. Tell me a little bit about the state band.
So the Arizona Fire Service or Arizona State Fire Service pipe band is basically encompasses all the small bands, all the small department bands throughout the state. Some are small, like 1 or 2 guys. Some there's a couple with numbers close to 20. A lot of them, like we have about 5 or 6 members.
Okay.
So the state band came along after the Granite Mountain Hot Shots died in the Yarnell Hill Fire, and all the different bands throughout the state and around the country came out to support all the services and for the guys. And all the tunes that we play, there's lots of different settings, so there's lots of different ways you can play them. So when everyone comes together and they're playing different settings, it doesn't always work super great. And especially when you're not used to playing with different people, it's hard to put it together and make it sound really good. So after all of that, a couple of the guys around the state in Arizona decided, let's get together on the same page, start working together. Let's standardize the music so that everyone's playing these tunes the same way. We're marching the same way so that we can, guys from Phoenix, Surprise, Glendale can come up here, or we can go down there. And it's like, okay, we're playing the 4/4 Irish set.
Right.
And 3/4 Green Hills Battles Over, and whatever it is, and we know okay, we're all going to play it the same way. We know how the tune's going to start and end. We know how we're going to march, and it makes and also standardizing our tuning,
right?
So it all comes together a lot cleaner. And when all that happened, I was on pipes, but I wasn't quite ready to participate. So I came on a little after that, maybe about a year after that started to form. And I remember the first time I met guys from the state band was at an event, actually Terry Jacobson put on at Celtic Crossings. It was halfway to St. Patty's Day. So it was just an idea for a fun event, some games, and just to come together and kind of have fun. So I went to play at it, and a few guys, about 4 guys from the Valley, came up from the state band, and that's the first time I'd played with other pipers. Okay. And it just opened my eyes to this whole other world. Oh, wow. And I was hooked right away. It's like, you talk about the brotherhood of the fire service. Pipes and drums is a brotherhood within a brotherhood. Right. And so the state band, that is really what got me as a piper up to speed. Being able to play in a band, learning all the tunes, and marching and all of that. So without them, I wouldn't be where I am, and we wouldn't have a band. Or if we had a band, it wouldn't be what it is. So.
And I remember that first event because I believe, again, we'll just call him Instigator Jacobson, was the one who coerced you into playing publicly. Yep. I was there, and he's like, you got to hear Doug play in a typical Doug fashion. No. I'm not ready. And pretty soon he goaded you into it, and it was great. So how did this band come together? How did you get Duplessis and Muniz and originally Bolters, and now we've got Perez and Cunningham and Prangy? How did you start that process within CAFMA?
Threats and blackmail.
Awesome. That's the best way to do it.
It just happened little by little. I was by myself for a while, and like you said, I slowly started doing more events, and kind of pushed into it, and eventually got some confidence under me and started doing more and more. And I was like, I'd really like to have a band up here. Right. And so my friend Tom Muniz, I knew he was a drummer. He had a lot. He has pretty good pedigree as a drummer.
Really?
Playing in marching bands, college level marching bands and things like that. So I just bugged him for years.
Right.
And he kept turning me down. Eventually, finally talked him into it. And slowly, guys just started coming on.
Right.
Captain Duplessis was interested in the bass drum. He started... we talked,
Okay.
and he got going on the bass drum. Tom started on the snare, and Cody, same thing, interested in bagpipes. He started coming around, and fortunately, we have a great instructor for bagpipes. I was able to start turning guys on to.
Oh, good.
So just little by little, and I think the more we started going out and playing, and in fact, the first time we actually had a band to speak of to play was for the Blessing of the Field ceremony. I think it was in 2017 out at the Civic Center.
Which was awesome, by the way.
Thank you. And that was myself, Cody Cunningham, Tom Muniz, and Rob Duplessis.
Right.
And I think people saw that, and some more people got interested. So little by little, we get more people. And sometimes people come on, and then life happens, and they have to drop out or step back for a while. But it's interesting because a lot of people see us, especially playing in a pub, doing some fun gig, and they say, I want to do that. And so they come and talk to us, and we pretty much talk them out of it. Not on purpose, but once, people hear how much time it takes to get to where you can actually play the instrument out in public, and how much practice and time you have to put into it. It eats up a lot of time. So people don't have that kind of time to give in a lot of cases. But
so it's I think when you talked to me before, it's like a year before when somebody says, "Hey, I'm interested. I want to pick up this instrument," and you guys have some pretty rigid standards to make sure that your band stays at top level. Yeah. And so is that accurate?
Yep.
Okay.
It's yeah, and like everything I do, I learned from people. So, my piping instructors, the guys in the state band, especially the pipe major for the state band, I look at what they did and their recipe for success. And that's what I follow for me and for our band. And so, yeah, we do have a high standard, which requires a lot of practice, a lot of, taking private instruction, playing together as a band. And typically in a year, we do anywhere between 40 and 50 events.
Okay. Wow. Plus,
we used to do weekly practices. Now we do bi-weekly just because everyone's so busy.
Right.
And it is hard on families, and it's a hard balance sometimes. But you have to, like talking before about, bad pipers and good pipers.
Right.
Like you have to keep the standard because when people see a band or a piper out in public playing, they just associate everyone with that.
Right.
They don't know that's a good one or a bad one, or that's a bad band or a good band. They think there's a bunch of fire guys just goofing around.
Right.
So we want to make a good name for ourselves, the department, the state band that we're part of, and pipers and drummers in general. So it's a constant.
Yeah.
They're unforgiving instruments too. You really have to stay on top of them to make them sound good.
Yeah, I think you can get away with it with drums a little bit more. I mean, because I had no idea that Tom had rhythm at all. And there he is marching and playing drums. But the bagpipes could potentially sound like somebody stepped on a cat.
Yeah.
Not when you play them. I'm not saying that. Not at all.
I have my moments.
But so tonight we have a retirement ceremony and a promotional ceremony. You guys are playing there. We have some other things coming up, but we need to get you guys back out as everything opens up from COVID. We need to get you guys back out so that you can play and start raising some money again. Because I saw Ross new on the tenor drums. He had shorts on, so we need to get some cash to get Ross a kilt. That's what we're working on, folks. We're raising money to get Ross a kilt. Can we get a longer one for him?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Yeah. So Ross, we're working on it for you, buddy. But no, this is fantastic. And Doug, I really appreciate you sending that text, knowing that there was the potential I was going to coerce you into this, and your willingness to come on and talk about the band because you've done such a great job, and all the members have, but I know you've been the catalyst for this. I wasn't always a big fan of bagpipes, but when I hear you play, it's something completely different. And I think when I hear the state band come in, and I know you had some state folks up for the memorial last weekend for Ty, and it just sounded beautiful, but you choke me up every time you start Amazing Grace. And I don't think there's a way around that.
Yeah.
So, but I appreciate you coming on. I'm looking forward to hearing you guys playing tonight. And for all of you out there, remember 772-7711, the Honor Guard Pipes and Drums are 501c3, hit pretty hard by COVID like a lot of people. For you cities and towns where these guys play, you just got millions of dollars in relief funds. Fire districts got zero. You guys got money. We need to get Ross a kilt, and the band needs some money. So if you're looking for some place to go, this is like the arts. So this, I believe it fits under the CARES and this most recent relief fund.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I wouldn't know because they cut fire districts out. I don't know if I mentioned that. So, Doug, thank you very much for coming on. Jonah, as always, thank you for being behind the camera, behind the scenes, setting everything up for us. Until next week, JK, I'll be reaching out to you very soon.